SummerSlam has now come and gone. Probably one of the most eventful PLEs that WWE has had in a while. A lot of news to talk about, and to help me talk about it, joining me on the hotline, he is from One True Sport. He hosts the Rob Van Dam podcast, does podcasts with Magnum TA and Greg Gagne, and just one of my dearest friends. He's so wonderful, and he was in Cleveland, so we'll get the in perspective. It is my good friend Dominic DeAngelo. Dom, how are you, man?
Stu, I'm doing great. Like I say, it's always great to catch up with you, whether it's in person or over here too. You're talking about how hot it is in Austin. I miss Austin. I was only there once, but we got to meet up there, and it was
Yeah,
great. Such a great
yeah.
and
Had a
everything.
nice little bit of a dinner there down at Schultz Garden.
Yeah.
Still running, the oldest bar in Texas, allegedly. So,
Hey, I'll take it.
I always start these things. Give me a letter grade for SummerSlam.
So I think I would give it a B plus overall from it. I think from us, if you're big into the story, I mean that's you're probably give it an A plus. I think if you're going for if you incorporate maybe how the matches played out and like the wrestling aspect of it all, maybe drops it down a little bit. But I mean and I'm more into the story than I am the wrestling when it comes to like maybe my where my heart is. So if I'm being diplomatic, probably say a B plus. But I really like the show.
And that's kind of where I'd go. I'd go at least B, probably B plus.
Mm-hmm.
Heavy on story, man. There were a lot of story elements that came out, and we'll talk about that. The wrestling was good. There were a couple matches that felt a little like the pace just wasn't there, or maybe there was something missing or something. We'll talk about it here in a little bit. But I mean, the big story coming out of SummerSlam, of course, got to be the return of the original Tribal Chief Roman Reigns at towards the end of the match with Cody Rhodes and Solo Sikoa. And this was after all the shenanigans with the Bloodline and Kevin Owens and Randy Orton and then Jacob Fatu and all that good stuff. Now you were at Cleveland Brown Stadium there in Cleveland. How loud was the reaction for Roman Reigns when he came out?
It was big time, Stu. I mean, you think about, him being gone for so long and how they've kind of built everything over the course of the time when it comes to Solo and kind of, taking umbrage with everybody and kicking out Heyman, kicking out the Usos, making his own bloodline, calling himself the tribal chief. And then like, yeah, just kind of scorch earthing Roman during that time too. So pretty cool payoff for it to come out. And then like, you have strange bedfellows in Cody and Roman when that comes to play. And so kind of neat to see them kind of be on the same side of things in this juncture, like almost like, hey, Roman's still kind of like, you're gonna have to owe me one. I didn't want to do this for you, but I did it because it's because of Solo there. So
Yeah.
um, it was very cool. He is going to be a very, very hot baby face. And people are really questioning like how is Cody? This is going to affect Cody. This is going to play into that. I think it's a blessing in disguise for both of these. It's like, you got the best of both. You got a Rock and an Austin here, and you have the benefit of having two different shows. You have a benefit of create a lot of great stars that both these guys can work with. And you can have it's a different flavor of ice cream. But some people will be on Roman's side. Some people will like Roman more than Cody. Some people will like Cody more than Roman. And who knows what Roman's status is going to be? How often is he going to wrestle? He could have a much lighter schedule in comparison to Cody, who wrestles all the time, who is there all the time.
Yeah.
He is, for better or for worse, what people may think is the face of the company, and I think it's for better. I like Cody. I think he's great. So it's like, but Roman being there as a babyface, there is nothing wrong with that whatsoever.
No, I totally agree. And I think it's actually going to be a matter of they're going to basically travel in parallel paths. You got Roman now is back. He's going to set, now we're going to see the Bloodline Civil War that has been promised ever since Roman, left after WrestleMania. Meanwhile, Cody's going to take on new challengers, and there's several that he can face. But I don't see them intersecting much. I really don't. I think it's going to be both stories are going to travel down the same kind of like I said, a parallel path. But and you're right. I think this was, this was not Roman saving Cody as much it was Roman getting at Solo.
Mhm.
This was more of reminding him who the big dog is. And you mentioned about Roman's part-time schedule, and yeah, they made a big deal about it, during the latter part of his title reign.
Right.
Simple fact that he is not wrestling as much. You're not gonna see him as much. I think that's definitely gonna help with his attraction as well as Cody's.
Yes.
It's gonna be, like I said, it's gonna be fun to watch. It really is. You've seen the reports just like I have that, like, internally Roman is listed as a babyface now. So we'll see if that comes to fruition, what that looks like, how much of a babyface is it gonna be, or is it more of a tweener? We'll see. I get it. Uh, let's hope. The one side little story that came out of it, Jacob Fatu, he goes up to the top turnbuckle, hits the big splash on Cody on the announce desk, and then immediately grabs his ankle. And it he apparently he had to be helped to the back after the match and everything. There are photos out there floating that he was in a walking boot as of Saturday night. Now, is that just a really good sell job, or is it a legit injury? I really hope it's not a legit injury. I hope Jacob Fatu is good to go. I hope this is nothing more than him selling. But the way he pulled up, and if you look at the slow motion, it looked like it was. I think if I remember correctly, it was his right ankle as he comes down on the desk. His right ankle goes on that ledge, the front ledge of the desk,
Hmm.
and I think that may have been where he might have injured something. Um, just give me your thoughts on Jacob Fatu, what he is, way he has looked, up to and through SummerSlam, and then the possibility of whether he might be injured or not.
Yes, I'll start with I've known Jacob for a few years now, like being behind the scenes at MLW and everything like that. And he is like, for him to be the monster heel that he was when he was with Contra Unit.
Mm-hmm.
um, I think he was that, wasn't he that when we saw him at Battle Riot 2, Stu? Way
Yes.
back when? Yeah.
Yes.
So he was with Contra Unit back then.
Yeah.
And then like just this wild monster, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then they eventually turn him babyface when he loses the Hammerstone, and drops the title to him. And then you get to see him cut promos and like have this organic connection where it's just like he's a real dude that's like you don't want to mess with. Like, and but he's somebody that the fans can connect with and relate to and kind of live vicariously through. He is very underrated on the microphone. It's kind of neat that we haven't got to see that yet in WWE. And because you see his unspeakable talent when it comes to what he can do in the ring. It's one of a kind, and it's very much, hey, how are we gonna kind of contain him? WWE's got a good problem in this because it's like he's gonna be a star. He's already a star, and it's just like, how do you not have him overshadow the rest of the bloodline because he's so dang good? And that's the thing. That's a great problem to have. And like the way they have presented him has been beautifully. It's been picture perfect. And it really fits his tone to the entrance, to his that wild man character. But hey, there's more. There's so many layers that with Fatu to this. Now I will speak to the point of the injury. um, I remember backstage when I was at MLW in Philadelphia, there was something going on where Jacob had a match. And throughout this whole match, he sold like he hurt his leg really, really bad. And like that was kind of the thought process of it all. And here, he was just doing it. He was just doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So when I saw this happen, when I saw him hit the table and then him kind of flip out and be like, "Oh, dang it, like finish the match, finish the match." I was immediately thinking, this guy knows what he's doing. Like this is part of the thing, and I think it kind of speaks to the what happened in the match. Roman comes out, takes out Solo. If Fatu was there, that couldn't have happened. If Fatu was able to come into the ring, that there's no way that could like you could not have told that story the right way. So I think, and I was watching too the whole time as this was going on with Roman in the ring. There was nobody really around Fatu during this time. Like Fatu was just kind of sitting there and like selling and everything like that. So him going into the walking boot and everything like that, it kind of gives you a little bit of a pause. But I ultimately, Stu, if I had to take a guess, I'm saying he's just a great seller. He knows what he's doing. He's a professional, and this just plays into something that he's very, very good at. So I think he's a-okay.
Yeah,
Uh, and I just love Jacob Fatu. He's
yeah.
such a highlight for WWE. I'm so happy he's there. He's such a good dude. I'll tell this one quick story too. Is Starcat? No, it was Top Guy Weekend.
Mm-hmm.
He was there and interacting with fans, and like he was part of the fans basically. Like he was accepting the fans and taking them along for the ride basically. But such a neat aspect was he came running up to me. We were in the green room or something like that. He's like, "Yo, do you know where Jerry Jarrett is?" Because Jerry Jarrett was there at the time. And I was like, I think I saw him. And so I took him over there. He wanted to get a picture with Jerry Jarrett. He wanted to make sure he got a picture. And he told him how much he respected Jerry Jarrett. And Jerry was just beaming about it all. And so I got to take a picture of both those guys together. And it just speaks to his respect for the business, his love for the business, and what he's really all about. He's such a I love Jacob Fatu. I'm
Yeah.
so happy for him.
No, I get you, and the interactions I've had with Jacob, he is a tremendous guy. He really is. I've throughout through his career with MLW, work on the Indies. He'll come to Texas, and he wrestled for Reality Wrestling for Booker T
Yeah.
quite a few times down in Texas City, and every time he was always so nice, and so yeah, and it makes total sense if Jacob it was 100%. When Roman comes down, well, Jacob's going to kind of take over, so it may make sense, and I hope he's okay too, and I tend to believe he probably will be. So,
Yeah. He's a
uh, overall, we had 4 title changes,
crazy.
which I mean, it felt like Wrestle Kingdom. New Japan, they'll change. They'll Wrestle Kingdom. They'll change. 3/4 of their titles. This one's kind of the same. You had 4 title changes. 2 of them, you had the Judgment Day imploding. So now we have a new Judgment Day or whatever, with Dom turning on Rhea, and doing that makeout session with Liv Morgan there after the match, and then Finn Balor turning on Damian Priest. Uh, which which title change surprised you the most?
I will say probably Nia versus Bailey. Um, Not that I'm disappointed about that. I think that was the right move, to be honest, because I think Bailey's kind of has not really found a good groove as the babyface that she once was. She's great at what she does, but it's just something that whether it was a little bit of the promotional aspect of what they put behind her and the situations they put her in, and maybe a combination of like what this new persona is of Bailey. I don't think has really clicked on the mainstream on SmackDown on a week to week basis. Whereas it's for Naya, she is such a polarizing persona or character. People have their thoughts about what she can do in the ring, and does she hurt people? There's that kind of misnomer. But either way you shake it, I think she is a good dominant heel, has a great look, is very, I think, really kind of I don't think she gets enough credit for what she kind of can do on the mic when it comes to a personality and stuff like that. I think we're getting to see more of that. And I think Triple H is kind of aware of that too, is that there's more that you can kind of do with Nia here. And I think this is the perfect way to do it. And in turn, too, Stu, I think it not only I'm sure we're going to talk about Gunther, but it speaks to the stakes that come with winning King and Queen of the Ring. If you win it, you're look at both of them won the titles. So I think this was the right move. I was just surprised by it because I could have definitely seen them. A lot of people speculated that Bailey would continue on the babyface run, and this was just kind of a monster heel for her to deal with. Whereas they're putting more of the chips behind Nia, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do. And there's several good talents on the SmackDown roster that can complement Nia and that really go up against her in certain ways.
Yeah, and and not to mention this little, alliance with her and
Yeah.
Tiffany Stratton. You know, we know that's gonna disintegrate eventually. Tiffany will probably cash in on her or something. But because Nia keeps referring to Tiffany Stratton as her little Barbie doll, which okay, fine. It was. I would say that one was probably the most surprising one. You
Mhm.
talk about Gunther Damian Priest. That was a hell of a match, and it was done so well to give Damian as much shine as possible, and you could tell he was getting as much offense in that match as Gunther had.
Oh yeah.
And I think, and look, I've been a huge Damian Priest fan going back to his Ring of Honor days. Got to know him, while he was there, and so now to see him in this babyface role, and now kind of one of the lead baby faces on Monday Night Raw. Plus, now you got Rhea Ripley, the Terror Twins, so to speak. And we saw it Monday night. Damian gets the win over JD McDonough, and then Judgment Day comes out to beat up Damian, and then here comes Rhea, and all of a sudden it's the two of them, and they're wrecking shop.
Yeah.
Um, Let me ask you this: so Monday night on Raw, Gunther does his little, I'm the world champion, whatever, and all of a sudden here comes Randy Orton from
Right.
SmackDown, and long story short, it's Randy Orton that's going to challenge Gunther for the World Heavyweight Championship at Bash in Berlin coming up at the end of the month. Now, they're not. This is not going to be a title change. We know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what do you expect to see from Randy Orton versus Gunther?
Well, I think Randy is the perfect opponent for him to start off with because my other show that I do, Rumor and Innuendo, with the former WWE writer Robert Karpolis, he was making some suggestions, two suggestions that I thought were pretty darn good ones before Raw happened. And he said Sheamus could be a possibility.
Mhm.
And then he mentioned Rey Mysterio would be a good compliment to Gunther. And here we didn't even guess Randy Orton. But I think he's even better than those two choices simply because of the fact he's such a big star, a mainstream name. The fans really connect with him now. We can see him as a world champion, but not only that is like he's a good starting point. If you want somebody to beat somebody for Gunther to beat that makes elevates him in a big time way, that's Randy Orton. And then I think you can later on tell a story with somebody like a Rey Mysterio where you have a David versus Goliath situation. Whereas if you started him off with Ray, it might not seem like it might not as pack of as a punch as it does later on down the line. Where Randy, you look at the size height comparison to each one, they just match up perfectly. Randy's much more bulkier now, which is kind of like whoa, kind of deal. So Gunther beating him straight out in Berlin sets the tone perfect for Gunther and really gets his world title reign off to a really healthy and beneficial start. So I like it, Stu. I think what they're doing already, they already sold me on the match, and I think it was the little interaction they had off mic at Raw where they're talking to one another off the mic, and like that Gunther says he doesn't get phased by not seeing what's coming, and Randy's like, well, I hope you see that I'm coming for you and that kind of thing. And I thought that was such a cool interaction. And it almost like this matter of like, we don't really like each other, but we kind of respect each other. And I liked that added element too. So I'm all in on this. We know what's going to happen here. There's no way that Gunther's going to lose this match, but it's going to be a fun ride, I think, Stu.
I think you're right, Dom, and I'm same with you. I love that little off mic off mic, on mic
Yeah.
interaction. That was really cool. And I will say this: it kind of speaks to all the other different little pieces that we have seen over the last several months, really, with WWTV production. Things like the little bubble there in the corner talking about either what's happened, breaking news, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It feels a little more like a, dare I say, a sports presentation, which, hey, if ESPN ESPN does it really well, why not? It's really cool. You also had both secondary titles change. Braun Breaker defeats Sami Zayn, so he's now the new Intercontinental Champion, and then LA Knight defeating Logan Paul for the United States Championship. Um, I would guess that the U.S. title change may have been the less likely, I guess, or less expected one. I think everybody and their mother knew that Braun was going to go over, and the fact that they shortened the match, I think, helped that quite a bit. It helped Braun.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, L.A. Knight, Logan Paul, that was, it was exactly what you expected. L.A. Knight beaten up on a YouTube star turned wrestler, and I get the, well, I'm old enough where it's kind of like, okay, yeah, he's a YouTube sensation. Who cares?
You're
But
right.
getting all that, I totally get it. Give me your thoughts though on the two secondary title changes.
Yeah, totally with you on Braun Breaker and how that was totally expected, totally the right move to do. And like making it a 5 minute match like that, and then him getting two spears and beating Sammy emphatically like that, I think sets the tone for what we can expect with Braun Breaker. And like Michael Cole even set the table by mentioning some of the champions that became Intercontinental champions at SummerSlam for the first time, from Warrior to Steve Austin to there was another name too that was like, oh yeah, that's a good one too. And you think about that, they're putting him in that kind of class. That's very impressive, and that's shows the confidence that they have in him. And like Braun has been doing, and I that was one of the interviews I got to do while I was at SummerSlam was with Braun Breaker.
Yeah,
And I asked him about his promo, like what he's kind of taken from promos and stuff like that. And here you're just seeing him just do some really good work on the mic, just him being himself basically. And yeah, he's got these uncle vibes of Scott Steiner on the mic. He's got Rick Steiner to him. Little Goldberg, obviously people think of, but there's a, like Robert brought up a great point today. He's kind of like a Steve Austin, where he doesn't need to be like this. People want to cheer him. He's not necessarily a good guy, but he's in a very, very good spot. I'm really excited. He's one of my highlights of WE right now is Braun Breaker for sure. And so I'm all for that one. When it comes to Logan Paul and LA Knight, definitely I think in the grand scheme of all, the right move. I've had my, not my suspicions, probably my cautious optimism about LA Knight in certain ways, because he's certainly does peel the page back. When Logan Paul said, "Hey, you're kind of like The Rock and Steve Austin," like he was basically telling the truth in a lot of ways. Like LA Knight's got that kind of vibe to him where it's like, okay, what's your next step? Where are you going a little bit more than this? I want to see a little bit, who is LA Knight? What are we gonna get different that you haven't been saying, that's kind of a tone to a Steve Austin or kind of a tone to a Rock of shoving things up, where, and certain things like that. And so, and despite all that, he gets big time cheers, big time reactions. And there's that you cannot argue with that. When you get that kind of results, doesn't even really matter. But I'd like to see more from LA Knight. This was a good step in the right direction of like, hey, man, okay, he's back to where he kind of was, you know, last year, where it almost plateaued for him, I think, in certain ways, where he kind of did kind of cool down. Let's see what he does next. Let's see what WWE does next with him. But him being like Logan Paul, who I think Logan Paul is one of the best heels in pro wrestling, like undoubtedly. Like, and that's peeling away the YouTube stuff. You don't even factor that in. Him just as a persona, how he handles himself, the way he cuts promos and stuff like that. He's an obnoxious, classic kind of heel. And it's so impressive that he's able to do this so quickly and be like a natural in the ring. what he's able to do. It's like one of the top heels in wrestling, undoubtedly. I think, Stu.
Yeah, I think you're right. I do. Um, let's see. The Bloodline did not go empty-handed.
Nope.
As the Friday night on SmackDown, Tama Tonga, Jacob Fatu win the tag titles from DIY. Um, so now you have the tag titles in the Bloodline. We're gonna see. They'll freebird rule them. It'll be whatever combination, which I hope we see Tama and Tongaloa together in the ring at least a couple times in a match, because I mean, you win the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Title 7 times. You need to show your stuff up in a WWE ring.
Right.
Do you see any other gold coming to the bloodline, to Solo Sikoa's bloodline, let's say, in the near future?
That's a good question. I don't think so. I think there will be story depending on how often Roman will be a factor into this all. I think there's a lot more that you don't necessarily need a title to have this, because you have the family business going on and what all the controversy and grudges in between that. So I don't think you necessarily need that. I think if you keep these tag titles on some formation of the bloodline, I think that adds that kind of credibility and familial kind of chaos that Solo's group brings. So I think they're okay in that department. I don't think they necessarily need a title, you know, and yeah, I couldn't imagine them unless we just talked about LA Knight. Unless for some reason they think that they transition off of him kind of relatively quickly, you could incorporate the U.S. title. But again, Stu, I kind of don't think they need it almost, and I couldn't imagine either the World Championship, Cody's, or Gunther somehow getting into that factor. So
Yeah,
I don't think they necessarily need it, Stu.
yeah, I'm with you. I don't see world titles going there. I guess you could see the US title, but then again, I want to see a substantial reign with LA Knight.
Yeah, I think
I
he
think
deserves it.
and I think you'd have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah,
I
he
think
deserves
we
the
would be
opportunity
having
to
a lot
kind
of fun with him as US champ. So
absolutely. And like, yeah, like I just said too, I just want to see more from him. I want to see what he's capable of doing, going to that next level and stuff like that. Because I don't know, like how he handles himself right now. Does that have a shelf life? Is that going to kind of taper off, or will he still connect with the fans in a certain way where he's still a hot act like that? So, yeah,
exactly.
I think he's owed that, and I want to see what he does with it.
Yeah, I'm there with you. Monday Night Raw. We've got so you got the group of Sonya Deville, Shayna Baszler, and Zoe Stark, and they're battling Damage Control.
Mm-hmm.
Now, unless I missed something, you basically have heel faction versus heel faction. So why should I care whether they beat each other up or not?
That's it. I felt that strange too, Stu, because I was like, did I miss a beat or something? Because yeah, Damage Control came back. They didn't really delineate themselves as baby faces. Like aside from did they kind of helped did they help tie Lyra Valkyria and
Well, they came
Adrian what's
after
her name?
they came
Yeah.
after Zoe and them, but I don't know if it was to help Lyra or if it was just to get back at them.
Right. So they didn't really do necessarily a great job of making that. I like all these women in this. Like, I think Dakota Kai is an amazing baby face when positioned in that form. And then you also like, and I think people want to cheer Io Sky outright. And then in the same turn, I think Zoe Stark and Shayna Baszler and Sonya Deville are great heels. It just seems like a weird kind of thing where it's just like, what is the end game for all of this when it comes to it? Because like you have women's tag team titles, but they're not in that mix, and it's a trio. Like there seems to be a lot of trio of women right now going on, and it's like where's the payoff going to be with all this kind of thing? It just kind of seems like, hey, who's going to match up, and how can we get them all on television? I'm curious. It's definitely, I'm not like against it, but it's also like, where are they going with it?
Well, again, as I said, why am I to care about it?
Yeah,
So
right,
I
right.
don't have a rooting interest. I'm not. I don't have somebody I want to root for because they're both heel factions. So
Yeah.
I want to ask you about Odyssey Jones. He debuts Monday night, as the at least comes to help out Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston for the New Day. Kofi over the moon about it. Xavier kind of hesitant. For the love of God, we're not breaking up the New Day, are we?
You know what, Stu? I said this probably a couple weeks ago. I think it's high time to break up the New Day, to be honest. I want
I
to
know.
see.
I want them to get.
You want to
They
stay
need.
together? You want them to stay
I want
together?
them like the Rock and Roll Express. They
You
need to
want
be
them to,
together for
yeah,
the next 4 decades.
yeah. See, I'm kind of like thinking, I think part of me wants to see the breakup too because I want to see what they kind of do here with Final Testament. Like I love Karrion Cross. I think he's awesome. And I think like Paul Ellering being in the group is awesome. And then Scarlett's such a presence. And then AOP, they've had this dominant reign in NXT. And it's just like, why aren't they clicking? What are they doing? They're not really giving them the opportunity to kind of, the best. It's like a lower mid card kind of feud going on right now. And I think too, it's like we've seen the comedy act and the lightheartedness from New Day and stuff like that. And so like they're carrying crosses planted the seeds of doubt into Xavier Woods, and then Odyssey Jones showing up because Kofi was like, "Hey, I met him down in NXT. He's a great guy. I didn't tell you about it, so here we go." It kind of affirms what Karrion Cross was kind of like playing into Xavier Woods about. So I think they're creating some interesting stuff. Maybe they don't break up. Maybe this is gonna solidify them more with Odyssey in there, and Xavier Woods will buy into it, and then maybe see what Karrion Cross is doing is very deceptive. But who knows? I think it's an interesting stuff. I love the incorporation of Odyssey Jones. I think people are giving some people have been upset from what I've heard about like, oh, is he replacing Big E? I don't necessarily look at it as that way. I think, it's a cool thing to kind of do. It's like, he's a new guy, he's a big star, and putting them with New Day elevates him. And he's such a huge presence. We saw what he's capable of doing, picking up both members of AOP like that was very impressive.
That was very
Got a
impressive.
huge pop. And I think there's a lot to kind of take away from this. So I'm more of the camp though, Stu, that I would like to see New Day break up.
All right. I mean, and I love you, but man, please, for the
Fine.
let's have them figure things out, and they come together, and we have more fun. I think it would be a lot of fun to see Xavier with Kofi and Odyssey. I
True,
think we
true.
could have some fun. So
Absolutely, absolutely.
we get the Wyatt Six in the ring, and I've been saying this where ever since they were teasing this, and then we had the introductions and the VHS tapes and all that. I said, look, you know, the presence is neat, but it's got to eventually end up in the ring. Otherwise, why are you doing it? This isn't some sort of weird spooky film. It's pro wrestling. It's got to end up in the ring. So we get it in the ring. They're in the ring. They get the victory over Chad Gable and the Creed brothers. Now they're called American Made, which all right, whatever. Um, but it was a they did really well. Not to mention you saw the tributes to not only to Bray Wyatt but to Brody Lee, aka Luke Harper. Um, give me your thoughts on what you saw from the Wyatt Six in the ring Monday Night on Raw.
Yeah, so yeah, that's been the big talk about it. What will be yeah, the whole presentation of all these guys and oh my gosh, Nikki Cross has been really amazing. Like really well done. The I think Bo Dallas has shown some really like A+ kind of acting stuff when it comes to this stuff and really like the connection. And I think that the neat thing about the Wyatt Six is they've humanized. They don't make them like this supernatural kind of thing. They're still Dexter Loomis, still Joe Gacy, it's still Eric Rowan. We haven't seen too much Nikki Cross yet, but we'll get there. And then we've seen Bo Dallas. So it's just like, yeah, these are people and they are also mortal. So it's like we get that in the ring. And it comes in the ring, and the question is, yeah, how is it going to pay off? listen, they didn't blow my socks off with what they did necessarily in the ring, but I was very, very satisfied with what they did too. I think they did not hurt themselves when it comes to like, oh, this might not work. I think, yeah, this has a lot of potential. I think if they keep them positioned right, I think Dexter showed himself to be really well. Joe Gacy's also was a good compliment. I did say too, wasn't necessarily a big fan of how Michael Cole positioned them in certain ways, where he kind of gave you like a little bit of rundown, like, oh yeah, Dexter Loomis believes he's Mercy the Buzzard, and Joe Gacy believes he's Huskus the pig boy or something, and that just felt. I was more like, can they symbolize them? Not necessarily believe that they think they're these people. Like it kind of gave me a little bit of a disconnect. It might be a little nitpicky, but that was one aspect I took away from it. But overall, Stu, I really liked it. I thought they exceeded expectations, I think, in certain ways. And yeah, I'm still invested into it. So
Yeah, it definitely gave me hope because that's that was my big thing. Like I said, and to see them in the ring, they worked well together. It was a good match. It was a good first step. Let's see more of it. Let's see Uncle Howdy Bo Dallas in the ring as well. Let's see Nikki Cross, Abby the Witch in the ring as well. You don't necessarily have to put titles on them, but
yeah,
let's get them involved in ring action. So I'm totally for it, and I think it really helped that story move forward. And I'm intrigued to see what happens next. Whereas the Bray Wyatt stuff, there were times when it intrigued me. There were times when I was going, okay, get me to the next segment. This isn't for me. This I think I might be able to invest in. So yeah, I liked it, and I want to see more. I do.
yeah, yeah.
He is Dominic DeAngelo. Catch him on One True Sport. Catch him. Dom, run down all the all the stuff because I'm sure I missed stuff. So tell everybody where they can find you in podcast land.
Sure. Okay. So yes, I host One of a Kind with RVD that drops every Monday at 4:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Go to rvdtv.com, subscribe, like, do all that stuff. But yeah, like Stu said too, I also host Straight Talk with the Boss, Mag MTA and Greg Gagne. That's every week too. We'd go live every Thursday at 4 p.m. typically, and then the episode is up there. You can see it on OneTrueSportTV.com or fourhorsemanetwork.com. So that's available. But Stu, like you said, I do a lot of other stuff too. I do Rumor and Innuendo on ad-free shows, the daily Monday through Friday show. You can catch at noon Eastern Standard Time, me and Robert Karpolis. Then I produce the why am I losing trade? The Matt event with Matt Camp, his new show, which is great. I produce that show. I do social media for MLW, Major League Wrestling. What else do I do? Oh, I do a show tomorrow. Me and Bill Alfonso are going live. It's straight right down the middle with Bill Alfonso on RVD or on OneTrueSportTV.com. And then, geez, Stu, I think there's some other stuff too that I do that I can't necessarily remember right off the bat. Oh my gosh, I got a lot of stuff
That's
going on.
okay.
Yeah.
At Dominic DeAngelo on social media. So make sure you're there. And you're going to go to the Cauliflower Alley Club reunion in a couple weeks.
Yeah, you too, right?
I will be there as well. So we've got to hook up and I don't know. We'll go get something to eat or something. I don't know.
Absolutely, you gotta do something.
That's
Well,
gonna
maybe
be.
we'll do a little gamble. Do you gamble at all, Stu?
I do. I might feed some. I might feed some video poker a little bit, but
That's what I do. I'm a video poker
yeah.
guy. So
So maybe do that and drink a beer too. So
I like that. I
but
like
yeah,
that.
looking forward to it. I'll be down there. So looking forward to you. I think you and I may have to hook up together and do the podcast, live from Cauliflower Alley Club. So
I'm totally game for that.
that'll
We should
be
do it.
fun. That'll be fun.
Mhm.
Dominic
100%.
D'Angelo, I appreciate it, man. All the best to you. You know I love you. All the best. And we'll talk again soon.
Yep. Love you too, Stu. It's been great.